Over time, democracies don't usually fall apart in dramatic moments. They wear down slowly. And one of the clearest warning signs is not tanks in the streets. It's the way leaders talk about violence. Over the past several years, Donald Trump's rhetoric has repeatedly lowered the barrier between political disagreement and physical force. Not all at once, not always explicitly, but consistently. Tonight, I want to walk through how that normalization happens, why it matters, and why it should concern anyone who cares about democratic stability, even if they agree with Trump on some issues.
I am your warrior, I am your justice, and for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
Political violence does not begin with action, it begins with permission. When leaders frame opponents as enemies, institutions as illegitimate, and force as necessary, they create a climate where violence feels understandable, even justified. That doesn't mean every supporter becomes violent. Most don't. But it does mean the moral guardrails weaken, and once that happens, the most extreme actors feel emboldened. This is not about tone policing, it's about democratic survival.
He's appointed Pete Hegseth as his defense secretary, whose writings show that he regards leftists, political opponents, university professors as the enemy, as the real enemy.
We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but we are under invasion from within.
Trump's language follows a recurring pattern. First, he portrays political opponents as existential threats, criminals, traitors, invaders, enemies of the nation. Second, he casts democratic institutions, courts, elections, the press as corrupt or rigged. Third, he increasingly presents forceful action as the only remaining solution. Each step makes the next feel reasonable. Over time, what once sounded shocking begins to sound normal. January 6th is often treated as an aberration, but it makes more sense as a culmination, the logical outcome of months of rhetoric framing an election as stolen and democratic remedies as exhausted. What's more concerning is what happened after. The language didn't retreat, it adapted. Violence was minimized, responsibility was blurred, and the underlying message remained. Force is understandable when the system is against you.
So this is January 6th, approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
Full pardon or commutation?
Full pardon. So this is a big one. Anything you want to explain about this? We hope they get them. We hope they come out tonight, frankly. We're expecting it.
It's important to acknowledge something uncomfortable. This rhetoric resonates because many Americans feel powerless, unheard, and angry. When people believe democratic systems no longer respond to them, they become more receptive to leaders who promise strength over process. That doesn't excuse violence, but it helps explain why the language works.
Hi, Tina Barton. This is Pissed Off Patriots of America. Guess what? You're going to pay for it. You will pay for it. You should be imprisoned, if not the least bit. You should be executed under federal prison. We will take you out, your family, your life, and you deserve the throat to the knife. Watch your back, you silly. Watch your back.
So when I first got that message, it was the Tuesday after the November general election. Obviously walking into the office completely exhausted, and then saw that the light was flashing on my phone and listened to the voicemail. It's not something that any election official signs up for, and it's unfortunate that it is a burden that a lot of us are bearing in this field.
When violent rhetoric becomes normal, the consequences spread far beyond headline events. Election workers face threats. Judges require security. Local officials quit. Ordinary citizens pull back from civic life, not because they don't care, but because participation feels risky. That kind of fear doesn't show up on election maps, but it quietly reshapes democracy. You can support strong borders. You can support tough criminal enforcement. You can even support Trump's policy goals and still recognize that normalizing political violence is a line we cannot afford to cross. Once force becomes an acceptable substitute for persuasion, democracy stops functioning as democracy. History is full of examples where democracies didn't collapse overnight. They hollowed out as intimidation replaced debate and fear replaced consent. What makes this moment dangerous is not one speech or one rally, it's accumulation. Words stack, expectations shift, the unthinkable becomes imaginable. Rhetorical norms, once broken, are hard to restore. If violence becomes politically useful, even rhetorically, it doesn't stay contained to one movement or one leader, it becomes part of the political toolbox. Democracy depends on restraint, not just laws, but shared norms about how power is exercised and how conflict is resolved. When leaders treat violence as understandable or even necessary, they weaken those norms, whether they intend to or not. And once that line is crossed, it's very hard to draw it again. That's why language matters. And that's why this conversation can't be avoided.
Thanks for spending a few minutes digging into this with me. If you want more grounded, progressive commentary without the outrage bait, subscribe and stick around. Every time you watch, share, and engage, it helps build a community that believes democracy is worth understanding and defending. I'll see you in the next video.